Hi, everybody. This is Brennan,
You've got Gabe.
and this is Shadow Valley. All right. So today we are starting our first episode on the big project.
The big boy.
And this is something that we've been working on and preparing for at least the past 3 weeks. And we're excited to dive into it. So what we're wanting to talk about today is we want to start getting into Jeffrey Epstein, his life, his crimes, and kind of a little bit of the conspiracies that happened. And this is going to be a multiple episode topic just because it's so large and it's actually extremely complicated, and that's why it's taken us so long.
Yeah, it's the thing is that we all, and Brennan and I were speaking about this prior to recording, but I think everybody knows the gist of Jeffrey Epstein. Like he I don't know. He's kind of a piece of shit, if you ask me. I think most people know that, but everybody knows he got into finance, got involved with a bunch of like what what people would consider like the elite crowd, if you will. And then pretty much just, I mean, we all know the rest. He killed himself in a jail cell.
Right.
And I was putting air quotes around that. Obviously, you guys can't see that, but there are air quotes around killed himself. You can believe what you want to believe, but I think both Brennan and I on our ends do believe that it was probably not Jeffrey Epstein killing himself.
No, there's too many factors at play for it to be him.
Yeah.
And we're definitely going to get to that. It won't be in this episode, but it will be in some of the future in the future, just because of how mysterious it was, and it definitely plays a lot into the conspiracy theories and finally like the end of Jeffrey Epstein's life.
Yeah, I think we're thinking this is probably going to be a 3-part episode, so I guess just stay tuned. But yeah, man, I think one thing that both Brennan and I kind of talked about as well prior to the episode was we all make jokes about Jeffrey Epstein, about the whole situation that happened, but doing more research and kind of learning more about this guy, it just like makes me not want to, I don't know, he's just such a piece of shit, dude.
Yeah.
He's a garbage human. And like, I was telling Brennan, I was like, dude, I want to shed like more horrible light on him.
Right.
Cause everybody was just like, oh, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm sure he didn't kill himself, but it's probably a good thing he's not here anymore. And like, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but
no, it's a good thing he's gone.
He's a pretty bad person. Like, you read into the stories and all the crap that he did prior to being arrested in 2019. Like, he's a really bad person, and the people that are involved with him as well were like horrible people as well. I don't think there's any justification or anything that could change my mind on that.
Right.
And like you had stated, they were like he's just a skeevy guy. Like, they found a bunch of evidence of him doing a bunch of really horrible stuff, and he continues to say, no, it wasn't me.
Right.
Like, dude, there's video evidence of you doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess we keep kind of alluding to what he had done. So let me just kind of break down Jeffrey Epstein. He was a financer. He was convicted as a sex offender, and a bunch of allegations of misconduct with minors, sexual misconduct, and prominent association with, I guess, the elite again, like people that you would consider elite, like for instance Donald Trump, people like that, or like famous actors, or just higher ups in like finance, whatnot. But he got evicted. No, not evicted. Sorry. He was convicted.
Right.
Remembering my words, in 2019, and then soon after passed away. Prior to this, he was convicted one more time, and we'll kind of dive into that. But just for those people that don't know or have been, I'm sure most everybody that listens to this is probably going to know. But yeah, just kind of give a breakdown of essentially what Jeffrey Epstein did. And then we'll, I don't know. I can start going into his early life right now if you want, but I don't.
Yeah. Before we jump into that, I really just want to reiterate how terrible this person is. Like, I literally wish the worst on this guy.
Yeah.
I wish he is getting the most like worst treatment in hell.
Yeah.
Saying in like,
Yeah.
assuming hell exists, but like I hope he's just absolutely getting fucked.
Yeah. I agree.
And he's a terrible person. He really is. Like, when we go into this, you're going to see how much of a piece of shit he actually was.
Yep.
Because there's so much that he did, and there were so many people he hurt. It's completely unbelievable. And you don't want to believe it because of how horrible and disgusting it is. And so going with that in, we mean the best for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and we would never say anything to show any different, that we don't show sympathy for them, but we do. We show a lot of sympathy for them. But Jeffrey Epstein deserves no respect, no sympathy.
Yep.
He's a piece of shit. He's literally just a cum stain on a pillow who needs to be washed away.
Washed away, frick, dude. Just throw him in the trash.
Yeah, throw him in the trash because he's just always hard as fuck.
Oh, that's disgusting. Okay.
Anyways, into his life.
Yeah, and just a kind of like just set expectation.
Yeah.
We may not, and I think we state this quite a bit, but we may not get all the details correct. We're just two guys as well. Like, we're doing our own research. You want to try and find the best, most credible resource out there. However, there's a lot of stuff that kind of just, I don't know, it tends to be a little bit misleading, but we will do our best to try and, I guess, negotiate and get the right details.
Sorry for not being perfect.
Yeah. Jeez, guys, come on. Okay, so just let's hop into it. So, early background of Jeffrey Epstein. I want to say Jeff, but I also want to say his full name.
Yeah.
Just like, because he's a piece of shit. I don't want to like call him anything different.
Right. He's not our buddy.
No, he's not our buddy. It's just it's so much easier because that is such a long name. I'm just gonna say Epstein.
Okay, yeah.
That'd be easier. Okay, so Epstein, born in 1953, January 20th, in Brooklyn, New York. His mom, Pauline, was said to be a very, very kind woman, which is cool. I thought that was interesting. I feel like that always tends to happen. I mean, maybe he did murder people. Well, I think he did. Epstein did, but I was thinking in my head, like, a lot of serial killers and stuff that you tend to either it's like one end or the other. They have really shitty parents, or they have like one really great parent that they love and they always tout to him. I feel like it was the same thing with this guy. Not saying that his father was any different. I think I didn't really catch too much on his father, but
He could be like a 50s father, learned by the belt.
that's true, because he wasn't 53. So born in 53, by the time this kid was 10 years old, 60s. So yeah, I mean, he probably was kind of like that, more of like a pull it by your bootstraps. If you're not doing it the right way, you're an idiot. Like, you're gonna get the freaking belt. But yeah, so Pauline was a very nice lady. She worked at she worked as a school aide at the school they went to, so that was pretty cool. And then his father was a groundskeeper for the New York City Department of Parks and Rec. So obviously, like, they were doing decent, at least I would think, back in the day, for them being both employed. They only had 3 kids. So Epstein was one of them, and he had 2 older siblings. I think it was a boy or a sister and a brother. I can't remember exactly, but they grew up in Coney Island, which I'm not really sure where that is. I just know it's in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he started attending public schools, and then later went to Lafayette High School. And a lot of people in his school stood him. He like was very charismatic growing up, whatnot.
Right. And a lot of psychopaths and like serial killers are like, they talk about Ted Bundy a lot and how he was very charismatic.
And yeah, exactly.
And so I think I wouldn't say this is like a sign of a bad person because there's great people who are out there, but I think it's definitely a cautionary thing to look for, like when somebody is maybe a little bit too out there, I
Yeah.
guess, who seems a little bit too much to be true. Like maybe,
Like look out for him pretty much.
yeah, because, you know, it's part of the way. I'm going to say this because it's true. Always remember that the predator chooses the prey.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have our victims and when we fall victims to these people, it's not necessarily all our fault
Right.
because the predator chooses the prey.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what these people are. They're predators.
Right.
And they're trying to find the most vulnerable. They're trying to find who they can manipulate the most. And so it's important to recognize that, especially going in. When we get thicker into it, it's not necessarily the victim's fault because that's exactly what he is. He's a predator. And so just tying that back in, even though he's a charismatic person, it's a disguise.
Right.
It's a false sense of security.
Yeah. Yeah, I think especially because, I mean, it shows a lot in his later life, especially when he becomes like starts working in finance and whatnot. People start to trust him, and because of his charismatic attitude and like outgoing attitude, people kind of flock to him, and they push aside all the other shitty things that they notice. You know, you got your blinders on almost, and because this person is like so cool in their eyes, they're like, oh, I don't want to like think any bad on him, which is very interesting because I actually had a similar situation with one of a while ago. This person I was associated with.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too much into the detail, but this person I was associated with, they were very charismatic, very kind. And most everybody that I encountered that knew them, they were like, oh, yeah, so-and-so is the best.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome. They're very, very kind, very intelligent, and they'll always help you out. Turns out so-and-so was convicted of many horrible things, and nobody knew about it.
Shoot.
Until a couple, and it was weird because there are things that and I'm not like exempt from this at all, because I was just saying everybody's got their blinders on, and I also had my blinders on as well.
Right.
Like I saw this individual, and one time so and so had told me their age, and I was like, "There's no way you're that old," and they're like, "Yeah, look, here's my license," and by doing so, they like covered their name on their license.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, in my head, I was like, that was so weird. Like no normal person does that. They just show you, if they're trying to do that, they just show you the ID, you know?
Right.
Because I've done that multiple times. Like I have a beard and I tend to look a little older than I actually am.
Yeah.
And so people, when they find out, there's like, no way. And so I show them my ID. Never have I ever went out of my way to cover my name.
I always try and cover my face because that's a terrible DMV photo of me.
But see, the thing is that people that know you, they know that you're Brennan.
Right.
You know? And so you wouldn't go out of your way to cover your name.
No.
And so it wasn't until after all this came to light that the reason so and so covered their name was because if you look them up, their record popped up. And that's why they did so, you know. And so it's just interesting that you never know who around you is going to be, I guess, that kind of person. And I think this happened, obviously this was very apparent for a lot of people that encountered Epstein, because everybody thought he was a good guy and eventually just turned into a really shitty ass person.
Right. It really is mind blowing how these people function. Like I had a mission companion who is this terrible person, one of the worst people on the earth, and he was very charismatic, but he definitely hurt a lot of people. He was somebody who really knew how to take advantage of people, and then kind of condition them in a way. And so it was definitely, there's people out there who are like that, where they try and hide certain things like that. So I definitely get what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's messed up. It's really sad, honestly. It's frustrating because you can trust somebody so much, you know, and then you don't know, like, and I guess this is with most people. We'd all like to think that we're pretty transparent, that we're pretty upfront, you know?
Yeah.
But I think everybody is hiding some sort of, or some part of themselves they don't want the world to see.
Oh yeah, we even hide stuff from ourselves.
Right, yeah. yeah, you look into the mirror and you want to tell yourself, oh, like, yeah, I did this, but it doesn't make me a shitty person.
Right.
When in all reality, it probably did. Like I don't know. We don't need to dive into that, but
No, because we all do shitty stuff in our life, but
yeah.
it's when we repeat them and it becomes a habit and it becomes part of who we are. Like we're not pedophiles like Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
That makes him a piece of shit
Mm-hmm.
because he's a fucking pedophile. Everybody knows what they do. And so that's like extra piece of shit level for him.
Mm-hmm.
But we all occasionally have those levels where we are like that, those moments, but it's when we keep indulging into that.
Right. Yeah. We keep wanting to go back to it, even though we already said, like, even if you mess up once,
Yeah.
which is fine, maybe even twice. But when you start making it a habit, or when you stop thinking it's like that bad, I think that's when the issue arises.
Exactly. And so it's just unfortunate that there's people who are just as charismatic as he is, and he himself are able to take advantage of people. And especially when, from what it sounds like, he didn't have the worst upbringing. Like, I mean, even where he ended up, like, he had a very good upbringing that allowed him to have lots of opportunities.
Right.
And I know a lot of good people who would have killed to have that chance.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, is like, this dude grew up in New York of all places,
Right.
first of all, but he did have a good upbringing. At least as far as I know. Like I said, I don't know about his father, but I know his mother was like touted to be a very nice lady,
Right.
like very, very motherly and comforting and stuff. But yeah, I can't say, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the same about his father. Like it could be completely different, but yeah, I don't know. Let's just continue on though. Sorry, I kind of sidetracked us a little bit there, but
no, I feel like it was all very relevant to the thing and definitely gave a lot of a deeper idea on his personality, at least a little bit more for right now, because we're definitely going to get more information on this guy.
Right. And that's the thing too. This will come up quite often. A lot of the research that I did, everyone was always like, oh, he was just very charismatic. He's very kind, outgoing. Like he made you feel trust in him almost immediately.
Yeah.
And I think we all know those type of people that like you talk to him, we're like, oh man, dude, like this person, like I love talking to them because they can always get me to talk, or they can always get me to like kind of vibe with them,
Yeah.
Which isn't always a bad thing, but obviously in this situation it was.
Right.
Because a lot of the time what would happen, obviously the horrible things would follow up. But yeah, let's continue on. So yeah, so he goes into school and whatnot, and people start to see he's very charismatic. A lot of his teachers said he was very intelligent. So that was one big thing that kind of set him apart from a lot of the individuals in his school, because he was intelligent. He was good with numbers and mathematics. And that obviously led into him doing more of the finance section, where he got really kind of into the nitty gritty, crappy, shitty things that he did.
He was a terrible person.
Yeah, he was horrible. So yeah, after he graduated high school, he went to Cooper Union. That's a little institute of math and science. He did not actually finish because he's a freaking big ass mook. He didn't get a degree. He was trying to get in mathematics and physics, but he never actually finished, which I thought was interesting that he got so far up the line. Like, this dude was making millions. Mind you, though, I would say probably a good 70% of that money was probably dirty ass money.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. A lot of people who have a lot of money aren't the most ethical, and they don't obtain it in an ethical way. I mean,
we know for sure that he did not obtain most of this money in an ethical way.
Right.
Like, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Continue. Sorry.
No, but a lot of like billionaires and millionaires are the same way. Like when somebody has a lot of money, they've kind of done it through some like unethical terms. Like you look at a lot of big businesses and they're, you're going to find something. You're going to find something that they've done, and not all the money is the best way like obtained.
Right.
I mean, you have some people who are like, just real quick, just to mention this, is like an unethical way is like, how companies like Apple has sweatshops in China.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
No, and it's filthy because you don't like. The thing is that most of us, like, I have an iPhone. I have a MacBook right in front of me. Like, I don't think about that. I just think about, oh, cool. Like I have this nice ecosystem, blah, 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 this and that's working well.
Right.
But you don't really stop and think about like all the other kind of like the shit pile that got them to where they were,
Right.
where they're at. And I think that's a really big issue right now. It's very prevalent with, for instance, like Temu, like that dropship company. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
So there's like this big thing going on with Temu and what's that other one? Shein, I believe.
Yeah.
That the company, people will get packages, and on the package it's like written like please help me.
That's insane.
Yeah, or like people have taken pictures of like their tag or something, like what's that? What's the name? Like where it says like the fabric and whatnot, how to wash it.
Oh yeah, I get what you're
Like
kind of
those little tags on shirts and whatnot.
Yeah.
They'll have like messages like stuck, please help, stuff like that. And it's like people think that it's a sweatshop where people are putting that like a secret message, if you will,
Yeah.
inside of that. And then there's on the other end, I mean, that's really shitty. But then on the other end, the companies are like getting it, and especially Temu, I think right now, because it kind of popped up out of nowhere. I feel like I just barely started hearing about Temu within the last probably 2 months or so. It's like gone crazy, like it blown up. It's like essentially like a wish.com website,
Yeah.
but they get things to you a little bit sooner. It's a little bit higher quality. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't
Yeah.
really done too much research. Obviously, it's just kind of like what I've heard. But they're having issues with a lot of customers from Temu getting their identity stolen and getting their like credit cards stolen and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's important to remember that most of these big companies probably have a pretty dark past, or they've gotten to the top not very honestly.
Right.
So,
I mean, you got to play the game in order to get to the top, and you got to sell your soul a little bit to do that. Like a lot of the stuff you're going to do is unethical
yeah,
because, first of all, there's so much red tape in the government that it's so hard to get there. And it can be a good thing at times that there's those precautions, but at the same time, it's easy to kind of like bypass those if you're willing to go into like more crooked routes.
right, exactly. Because the thing is with red tape, there's always somebody that's put that red tape there.
Right.
And I don't think, I mean, as much as we'd like to, a really big offer of money is kind of hard to pass up, right? Like say, hey, Brandon, I will pay you $1 million for your podcast right now.
Yeah.
Even if it was your baby, you'd be like, oh shit, dude, $1 million.
Yeah.
Dude, that'd be so hard to pass up, you know? And then if you're an official and you put this red tape up, Jeffrey Epstein comes to you and he says, hey, bro, I will give you $90,000 for you to turn your cheek. Look the other way. Like that, in my opinion, that would be, I mean, obviously knowing what he's done now,
Yeah.
If I was in the position of that and I knew what he was doing, I'd be like, hell no, bro.
Right.
You're a freaking skeevy guy. You're disgusting. Right. But the thing is that maybe I'm just talking out of my ass, like I don't know what happened in those situations, and
Everybody has a price.
right. Exactly. Everybody has a price. And I think it's very hard to like, unless you're put in that situation to gauge where your price is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I really would love to say I would never do something like that. I don't think I'd. If I knew what he was doing, I probably would have. No, I would have reported. Not probably.
Right.
I would have done it, because at that point, it's like, I think that's. Sorry, we're like really sidetracking, but but I think that's like wherein lies like one of the biggest issues with how we as humans kind of perceive situations like this, where we see somebody in power where we say, oh no, I can't say anything, otherwise I'm going to get killed, or nobody's going to believe me. But the thing is, if there's so much evidence, if you can shed enough light on this situation, in my opinion, at least I'd like to hope that individual, whoever reports them, would be safe.
Yeah.
You'd like to think, you'd like to hope. Mind you though, you never know. So, but yeah, I digress.
It actually makes a lot of sense because this does feed into Jeffrey Epstein. It gives you more of his personality because, not only is he charismatic and he's able to do all this other stuff, but he's so manipulative that he knows where he can push people. He knows your pressure points. He knows what it is that somebody wants. He knows your cost, and he's able to exploit that because he had so much wealth. And we're going to talk about how he obtained that too a little bit more, and just how he got to where he was.
Right. Yeah, I think you can think of Epstein as like Kingpin.
Yeah.
You know, like if you guys are all either like Marvel fans at all, Kingpin is like a predominant villain in Daredevil and Spider-Man. He's like a gangster, but he knows how to manipulate people. He has a lot of like connections, and he knows how to like get people to, I guess, bend to what he needs them to do.
Right.
And I feel like the same with Epstein in that way. But so yeah, back to the story.
Okay.
So yes, where Epstein doesn't graduate college because he's a big fool.
Yeah.
Well, he just kind of left because he didn't want to deal. So then eventually,
He's
which
lazy.
seems, yeah, lazy, honestly. So eventually, he goes to be a teacher at Dalton School in the Upper East Side of Manhattan, which I thought was very interesting especially because this is kind of when I think he probably started to let those thoughts kind of creep in my
Yeah.
opinion, because he was around youth so often that he was like, well, maybe I can kind of push the envelope here. I'm going to kind of push this line and see how far I can get. It was reported that Epstein would hyper focus too much on a lot of the younger females at the school, or like the young ladies and stuff.
Yeah.
He would even go out and party. Like he'd show up at parties that the students were having, and he'd get like drunk and smoke with the kids and stuff.
What a fucking loser.
Yeah, dude, it's messed up. But that's what I'm saying is I think at this time was when he was like I said, he was just testing it. He was testing the waters to see like, how far can I get with this? How far can I go? How far can I go?
Yeah.
Um,
He's grooming those kids for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, 100% he was grooming them. I think eventually, and so the school eventually ended up dismissing him. They said he was like not meeting expectation or whatever. But I think the school knew exactly what was going on, and they said, before this guy gets us in trouble or he does something bad, let's get rid of him. Get him out of here. We're done. And I think if the school hadn't have done that, I think he would have eventually gotten to a point where it was like he pushed the envelope so far, he pushed the red tape so far that he was able to get across it and started kind of doing really shitty stuff.
Do you think if the school did something as early on as he started showing this behavior,
like reported him or something?
Yeah, if they reported him when he was at this point, do you think he would have never became what he ended up becoming? Do you think that would have stopped him a lot sooner, or is this an unstoppable villain at this point?
I think it's hard. It's hard to say because the thing is that the school, and I'll just hit on this really quick. So while Epstein was working at this school, he met Alan Greenberg. He was the parent of 2 students that went there.
Yeah.
And he was the CEO of Bear Stearns. That's where Epstein made his way into like the financial sector.
Right.
He became like I don't remember exactly what his role was. I think he was just like a consultant or something like that. But because it was almost immediately after he had left the school or dismissed, that he went and worked for these guys.
Okay.
And so it's hard to say because let's say that, well, I don't know. I think maybe. Yeah. Yeah, because if the school would have had said something, reported him like, or said to the cops or something and been like, hey, this guy is being very like pervy. He's touched kids in inappropriate ways.
Yeah.
He's gotten too close with students. He spent too much time alone with like females at the school. I think, well, and that's the other hard thing is like back then, I think it was like in the like 90s at some point in the 90s, that he was teaching.
Yeah.
I don't know how seriously that kind of like accusation was taken, you know?
That's fair. It's very different nowadays than it was before, you know?
Somebody gets accused of that now. It's immediately they start investigation. Immediately.
Oh, yeah. It's game over, basically. And you're going to, even if you're proven innocent, like your career's over.
Yeah. And I think it's very hard to come back from something like that now. Obviously, and I think, well, and there's there's good and bad, right? I think it's really great because people can get brought to justice much sooner.
Right.
And our kids and our youth can be safer. But at the same time, there's been so many instances where somebody gets accused of rape
Yeah.
and they get proven not guilty, like with evidence.
Right.
But that person's life is, like you said, essentially ruined
Right.
forever.
I mean, because it just blows up in the news, it's a big thing.
Right.
And, so many people are on the lookout, like I mentioned last time, like, I've learned a lot about the different ways that pedophiles act and different things like that. And the fact that there's so many different signs out there of somebody who might be acting like that you almost, I would say, as a society as whole, we always are very vigilant as that. I had an English teacher who also would always 100% record the classroom while school was in session.
Uh-huh.
And he said the reason why he did that was because students held so much power to where they could end his career. And because they had that power to where if they just said something, they didn't like him and they said something, he could get in trouble. Whereas if he had the film to prove it, then he's okay.
Right.
And, the fact that he had to do that kind of blew my mind. But on the same note, I would always say that anybody who's had this happen to them, please step forward. And it is hard, That is one thing that should be noted is it is hard to come forward because first you have to admit what actually happened.
Right.
And, that's actually a myth about this. And people are going to wonder why the girls that were attacked or hurt by Epstein, why they didn't come forward sooner. And it's for that exact reason. It's, you have to recognize what exactly happened to you. And then you have to admit to yourself.
Because that makes it so much more real, And it's like...
You don't want to believe it.
Yeah, you don't want to believe it. You want to forget it. You don't want to come face to face with the thing that you fear the most,
Right.
And acknowledging it and saying, hey, this happened to your parents, to your friends, to your family,
Right.
whoever it might be, makes it real, makes it come to the surface, and you acknowledge it at that point, and it sucks. It's like acknowledging the boogeyman under your bed.
Right.
You don't want to believe it's there. You don't want to believe it's there, but once it's there, it's like, oh, shit, it's real.
Right.
Yeah, it's terrifying, man. And that's, I think, again, just to reiterate what Brennan had said in the beginning, I think we hold a lot of sympathy for these people. And I hope nothing that we say comes off like we are not on their side, because I am 100% against Epstein. He's a piece of shit.
We're not supposed to say this. I know it's terrible to say. It makes me like a horrible human being. But honest to God, I'm glad he's dead. I'm glad he cannot hurt another individual out there.
Yeah.
Because it's not okay. And, honestly, I believe the victims deserved more justice than what they got.
Yeah.
Because he did take the easy way out. And I mean that in the way of he didn't serve his sentence. He robbed these people of justice.
Right.
These people needed him to suffer the same way that they had to suffer. I mean, that's what justice is. That's what the law is supposed to do. It's supposed to equalize things. It's supposed to punish people in the same way that they hurt the victim.
Right.
It's supposed to give retribution to the victim, which, in these cases, he should have just been locked up for life. And he should have stayed there because the scars that he left on these women are lifelong scars. They're not going to just go away overnight.
Right.
He needs to pay for that, and he needed to pay for that, but he got away with it again, and that makes me so frustrated. But, in all honesty, if he can't be locked up, I'm glad he's dead.
Right.
No more victims at all.
So, and that's where and we'll get into this. I think we'll probably get into this in episode 3.
I'm obviously super passionate about how terrible of a human being he is.
The hard thing with this situation, guys, is that, we're saying, yes, he died, or glad he died, but also, as many of, and I'm sure many of you guys know, if this guy were to have stayed alive, he would have essentially blown the whistle on a lot of other things. And that's where it's hard, You know, that's where you kind of like start contemplating like, well, shoot, dude, like, and that's a part of the reason why a lot of people think he actually didn't kill himself, you know. And obviously the medical records show very different from what they're saying happened.
Right.
I don't want to get too deep into this.
We won't we won't get too far into it, but just like an overview, he could have brought a whole bunch of other people down with him.
Yep. And I think that's probably what they were trying to avoid. And that's why he, quote unquote, kill himself.
Exactly. And that's why you'll hear the joke that people make all the time, oh, he got Clintoned. And like, you know, I wouldn't put it past the former Secretary of State, Miss Hillary Rodham Clinton, allegedly assisted in this. Allegedly. We're going to use that word a lot, actually, because of what happened. Especially in cases of rape, it's very hard to prosecute those, especially when they come forward years after. I think Epstein's case had a lot of evidence, though.
Yes, a lot.
But, you know, a lot of these rape cases don't, and it's very hard to prosecute them and hold these people accountable. And so I would definitely say in that fact, like, there was a lot of people who could have been upset with the evidence that happened.
Yeah.
But again, that's just who Epstein was. That's the type of person he was. Those are things about him that have happened. And it really does relate. All of that relates back to where we were talking about how, you know, if the school had done something, possibly he could have been stopped there.
Yeah.
But if he was caught sooner before he made certain relationships, maybe, just maybe, all of these women could have been saved from what he was doing.
Right.
But he ended up meeting this man. He got into finance, making all of this money.
Yep. Yeah, because really, when he got into finance, I genuinely do believe that's when he kind of saw this new world, and he said to himself, like, oh, I can exploit this hard.
Right.
Because you have money, you have power, essentially. So let me step back and say, so he joined Bear Stearns, and by 1999, he established himself like really well. He started building networks. He started building really good relationships within the industry.
Right.
And then they say he was within the like high echelons of society.
Yeah.
Or echelons. I think it's echelons. I'm not sure. But this is essentially the elite. You know, he started talking to the elite, people that had a lot of money that could get that red tape off.
Right.
That could push that red tape to the side and not worry about it. I think that's really when this all kind of started. And I think that really shows within the books and his notes that he has, and his ledger.
Yeah.
Because it dates back very far. And I think it all started really then. Because not soon after, in 2005, the first like accusation came out of these parents accused Epstein of sexually abusing their 14-year-old daughter.
Right.
And it wasn't until 2 years after that he actually got convicted. So he took a plea deal. So essentially what they call it is a sweetheart deal.
Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it's messed up. He should have gone to prison or jail, or I think
he could have been put away for over 45 years for what he did.
Yeah. So, and here's the kicker. Here's the shitty thing is that the sweetheart deal, essentially what it is like you make a deal with somebody. Again, it's pushing that red tape.
Right.
You make a deal with somebody on the back end. It's a really dirty way, really skeevy way to do something.
Right.
Where two parties will benefit from it. And so he took this deal. He said, okay, they said, if you confess, then we'll give you 18 months in prison. Yeah. This dude confesses. He goes, and guess what happens? 18 months? No, 13 months. This dude barely served over a year in prison for sexually abusing a 14-year-old girl.
And you know what's even more messed up? The victims had no idea he took this deal.
Right.
The victim who came forward, she had no idea. And it wasn't until after she found out to where she went back to the state of Florida, because this happened in Florida, and asked and started trying to appeal the sentence, trying to show that no, she's been wronged by the justice system. It was something. It blows my mind how easily sometimes prosecutors will take a deal. Usually they come forward with a deal, but sometimes they just want to get it done with because I mean, imagine you're a prosecutor. How many cases are coming up on your desk, just like a judge?
Right.
How many things do you have to try and prosecute? And then you got to pour all of that time in there. And so when it's easy when somebody comes to you with a deal and they're like, hey, we'll confess and we'll take this.
Hey, we'll confess, take this, and we'll give you a bunch of money. Yeah,
exactly.
And the other thing too is that from this point, let's say Epstein started his career in finance in 1999.
Right.
2008 rolls around. That's almost 10 years. 10 years worth of time that he could have almost like buried him or burrowed himself into a bunch of really shitty situations.
Right.
Like not for him, but in terms of he had a lot of connections. Like I said, he networked really well. He grew these relationships. And at this point, when he's gotten convicted, what's to say that he didn't have other people kind of watching his back,
Yeah.
Somebody that had connections with this judge, somebody that had connections with this prosecutor that was able to get him off for a little bit, for much less time than he would have. They also worked out a deal. Well, not a deal, but because he's a rat, he was able to, it was he almost spent 7 hours a day at his office.
Oh yeah.
He didn't even really serve his time. It was pretty much just here's a slap on the wrist, essentially.
He got away with too much. He had his own private sector of the prison. He had his own private guards. He was allowed to go out for 7 hours a day. And eventually he didn't even have to really stay in the prison.
Yep.
He was more under house arrest at that time. And even then, the rules were so lax. He was able to play the system so well to where he didn't even really have to pay for the crimes he was convicted of.
Right.
Sorry,
continue.
No, I mean, basically, he got away with it, and the victims were robbed of justice.
Right. Yeah, but you think about it too, is this man that had so much power that was able to have his own essentially wing of the prison,
right?
His own guards. Fast forward to 2019, what happened to all that power? How does this guy not have any guards looking at him, not have any cameras on him, and somehow kills himself?
It makes no sense at all.
Right. I know we keep going back to that. But we'll really dive into those details come episode 3.
I just want everybody thinking about it ahead of time. It's just
it's very interesting.
While we're building up and giving you background on who this man was and what he eventually does, think about how at the end of the day, he had all this power. He's able to do all of this. And yet at the end of it all, his final moments of his life, the cameras in the prison weren't working. His guards that he had while he was in prison during this time weren't even there.
Yep.
He was left alone, and he wasn't placed on suicide watch, which blows my mind because you have this guy who's such a high-profile criminal. Usually they put people like that on suicide watch.
Right.
But they didn't. And so here he is, alone in his cell, quote unquote.
Quote unquote, yeah.
Allegedly.
Oh, that's what's up.
And he killed himself,
right?
In theory. Allegedly, again.
Allegedly.
So just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through this, as we describe more of who Epstein was. And also think, there's a lot of serial killers out there who didn't kill themselves after they were caught. Mm-hmm. And they had the same personality and the same type of gumption as Epstein did.
Right.
And so it really, and this guy, like we said before, he would have ratted on so many people. It was all too convenient for people to throw him under the bus and kill him because, think about it. He cares about one person. Who does Epstein care about? He cares about Epstein.
Minors.
He does like minors a little bit too much, but he doesn't care about them. He just likes to use them. They're his little playthings. Right. He's disgusting.
Yeah.
He's a horrible person who, is a fucking pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who else is just like terrible and who, allegedly, just kidding, not even allegedly, who probably did just because they were in a political place to where they could. Um, you know, uh, Former President Donald John Trump.
Yep.
He's been seen with him in photographs, and allegedly he participated in some of this stuff.
Yep.
And same with former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton. She's also been seen with Epstein, and they were known to be very close. Epstein was close to a lot of politicians, and I think that's important to note. But
I mean, who would have the most power there too?
exactly, these people are very, very intertwined with him. And, at the end of the day, this is going to be something I never thought I would say, but there's somebody worse than Dick Cheney.
You're 100% right, though.
There's probably a lot of people.
But the thing is that I wouldn't put it past somebody like Dick to be involved in the situation as well.
Right. Because he's a fucking crazy motherfucker.
Yeah.
He fucked his mother, allegedly. Just kidding.
Well, I've never heard that. But
He did not. There's no allegedly against that. He just did not. But he's a piece of shit.
yeah. So after all this kind of stuff happened, it was said that the people investigating Epstein,
Yeah.
they were allegedly or supposedly there were 36 counts
Yeah.
of girls that he had abused,
Right.
and the dude got off with 13 months in prison. It is ridiculous. Not to mention, obviously, this 14-year-old girl there was presented evidence that she
Right.
was abused, but then there's 36 other females that were also abused,
Right.
and he got a slap on the wrist.
It's insane. And this all happened in Florida, but it's probably not unheard of here in the state of Utah. I was
Right.
just barely on the jury or back in June for another trial that involved rape. And, here in the state of Utah, the minimum is 5 years in prison for each count of rape.
Each count is
But
5
can
years.
go all the way up to life in prison.
Right. And doesn't Florida still have the death penalty?
I believe they do.
Yeah, in something like that, I mean, I don't know. I know nothing about anything laws or logistic, anything like that. But I mean, at one point, do you look at somebody like that and say, yeah, you really, I don't know, like what decides that? What's the deciding factor?
Right.
Like, okay, if it was actually 36 girls that were abused,
Right.
at what point do you draw the line? That person should not be let back out.
No, not at all.
At all. They should not be near anybody.
Right.
Nobody. Like, I don't know. It is astounding. It is astounding how horribly that was all handled and how quickly he was able to get back to normal life.
Right.
When, like you said, that those individuals are all literally going to be scarred for life. They're never going to be the same. They're never going to have a normal life again. Well, at least you'd hope that they could have a normal life, but I
Right.
think that's always going to be in the back of their head, like a horrible situation. But this freaking horrible person was able to be let off in 13 months back onto the grind of doing whatever the hell he wanted to do.
Right.
It's just messed up.
And, something I want to mention, just because I feel like it's absolutely embarrassing for Jeffrey Epstein, and he deserves to be embarrassed, is the fact that, one of the questions, because these victims hired a lawyer after they found out how he got away with this. And as they were going through it, the lawyer had the opportunity to ask Jeffrey Epstein some really interesting questions. One of the questions was, Jeffrey Epstein, do you have an egg-shaped penis?
What?
Yeah, it was. When I found that out, I was like, oh, shoot. Dude basically refused to answer that question. And it was the first question this lawyer asked him during that question. Do you have an egg-shaped penis?
This was the prosecutor?
It was a lawyer, I will say.
Okay.
I couldn't verify if it was the prosecutor enough
Okay.
or not enough or not. This guy was on 60 Minutes Australia talking about this. And as he's
Egg-shaped
being
penis, wow.
interviewed, he said that. He said, you know, one of the questions I asked him, it was the first question is, do you have an egg-shaped penis?
Right.
And, you know, how do you respond to a question like that? That sounds very embarrassing. Like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you know what? Just kind of
He should be embarrassed about that. His
Yeah, he should
egg-shaped penis.
You know what just kind of came to my head is like, it would be, I think it would be very hard to be like a defense lawyer, you know, for a
Right.
situation like this, to defend a man, especially if you know that he's done something wrong, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I would never, ever be able to be a defense lawyer because of that reason. I think it would just be too hard not to want to like expose them, you know?
Right.
But I guess the money's probably so good in that guy. Whoever defended him was probably so good.
He
in his
had
pocket.
an army of lawyers.
Yeah,
He didn't
see.
just have one. He had a whole team of lawyers that, you know, you have this one individual who's trying to prosecute him and trying to get justice versus this entire army of people that you can just throw money at and
Right.
get them to do. And, you know, ethically, a lawyer is supposed to, even if they know their client's guilty, they're supposed to give them the best defense possible.
Right.
And so, as much as I'd like to say that's sleazy of the lawyers, they're technically doing their job at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they knew he was guilty, they're doing their job and they did it well. But at the same time, they assisted in the fact that he was able to get away. It's
Right. Like
a huge moral dilemma for me.
exactly. Like you're this lawyer, and then 10 years down the line, 2019,
Yeah.
all this crap comes up, and you're like, holy crap. I got that guy off on a slap on the wrist, and look at all the havoc that he's created. Like, at one point, are you a defense lawyer and you draw the line? That must be so just difficult. I don't know.
I would never. I would
It'd be
never
very
want to
hard
be
to
in
draw
that.
the line. Yeah, very, very, very difficult. Because I think anytime I heard something bad, like it would just be so hard not to, like I said, just turn them in. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Good thing
digress.
we're not lawyers.
Yeah, good thing we're not lawyers. Well, yeah, I kind of want to end it there. I think
Right.
we've got quite a bit of content for episode 2.
Right. And that's when we really want to dig into and you know, episode 2 might be a little bit harder because we're going to dig into more about his island. What about he did, you know, one thing to note, he had a private jet that he would use to fly people around.
Yep.
And he had several different houses in different places. It's insane. And the fact that he was able to get away with as much as he did is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, I think episode 2 is going to have a lot of sex trafficking, grooming,
Right.
involvement with a lot of influential figures, like we had stated prior.
Right. And some of them might be shocking on who was in there.
It is insane. If you read we'll get into it. The private island, obviously, and then international, because this guy had hands everywhere.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then, obviously, just your civil lawsuits that are pretty intense as well. But I
This
think
guy
that's all.
makes me so mad. I am like on the edge right now because I hate this man.
Yeah.
I hate this man so much.
It's really
because
hard to do research.
It is. It's hard to do research because they did such a good enough job to where they were able to suppress a lot of it. But there's a lot out there to where I can say without a doubt that he, in my opinion, is guilty.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He did the things that he's accused of. This isn't some poor white billionaire man who has been falsely accused of all of this. No. In my opinion, he did it all.
Yeah.
Allegedly, he's guilty.
Yeah.
I couldn't be on the jury because I know I feel so passionately that he's guilty.
Yeah.
And you know, that'd be a prosecutor's dream.
Yeah.
Somebody who's already like, a
he's
guilty verdict, but unfortunately that would disqualify me.
Yeah.
But no, he just makes me so mad because he's the worst. He's one of the worst people I have ever had the opportunity to read about and study.
Yeah. It's hard because
He's a fucking pedophile, dude.
Yeah, I was telling Brennan this prior to the episode that it's very difficult to want to do more research past the like his early life, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because you start getting all these really, really sad stories of individuals that have had encounters with this menace, and it's hard to confront it.
Right.
And mind you, I'm like not even I probably have no room to speak because I'm not the one that had to go through all that stuff. But it's very hard to read about it and listen to it. It's just sad. It's upsetting, and I think next episode, like Brennan said, it's going to be tough. Just because we'll spare the details. Obviously, we don't need to go into the detail of everything that happened, but a lot of things came to light when Epstein died, and we'll dive into much of that on the second episode. And I think third episode, we'll run it off and talk about conspiracy theories.
Right. And this is definitely going to be a heavy series, just to give everybody a heads up, just because of the nature of the content and what this individual did. It's not something at all we take lightly.
Yep.
And if you have been a victim of anything that is similar to what Jeffrey Epstein has done, or any sexual crime in general, I implore you to seek the retribution you deserve. Although it might be hard, I feel as though you deserve to have justice. What happened to you is not fair. And if you can't do it right now, that's okay. In the future, if you can, step forward, because these are the type of people we need to hold accountable. These people don't deserve to continue being free. They don't deserve to enjoy the different things going on in life. They deserve going to jail. And I think everybody
and
can
staying there for a very, very long time.
Yes. And so just ending with that note, I'd like to say thank you to all of our listeners who are listening. Thank you for all that you have done. And just again, an overall big thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
It's been very fun to see, I guess more onto a lighter note now, but it's been very fun to see kind of the traction that we're like seeing, I guess. Not that we're like popular by any means, but it's just fun to see that people actually care about what we're saying, you know? But yeah, I think along with Brendan said, thanks guys. It's been really fun so far, and we hope to continue doing it for a long time. Again, we'll plug our social again. We started an Instagram. It's Shadow Valley Pod on Instagram. Go give us a follow. We'll continue to post like when episodes are coming up, any changes. For instance, if like we have too busy schedules, whatever, blah, 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 give us a follow, send us emails. We'd love to hear from the fans. Send us DMs. We'll respond. We might even follow you back, but I don't know. Yeah,
definitely. If you have anything or there's something you want to say, definitely DM us on Instagram or email us at shadow.valleypod@thedogenetwork.com, shadow.valleypod@thedogenetwork.com. And I'll plug the social in the description of the episode.
Yeah. We'll catch us next week.
All right. Bye.